area?
Yeah, well, I'm born and raised right here in Waterville. Actually graduated from Lawrence High School in 1988. I'll talk about some of that stuff here as we go, maybe, if it comes up. Uh, Struggled a little bit as a kid. I was always behind in school. So, thanks to my grandma and some mentors, I had some good teachers. I decided to join the military. There was nothing really around this area for me at the time. I was working at McDonald's. I really didn't want to flip burgers the rest of my life. So I walked into the recruiter's office and left for the Navy. Uh, 30 years later, I ended up deciding, okay, I'm going to turn down a promotion and I want to get back to Maine. I was stationed in California pretty much all my entire military career, uh, and I miss Maine. I've always missed Maine. I'm a Mainer, and it's hard, especially living in California with the state of that state the way it is. Great people in that state. It's beautiful, but it's not Maine. Nothing compares to Maine. So me and my wife decided we would move back to Maine after I retired from the Navy, and here we are. Politics is something I've always wanted to get into, but nothing really pushed me over the edge more so during my time in the military when I was in leadership positions where the the budget, the military budget, really impacted what we could do, and I saw how the change in presidency and mindsets really helped me and our team do our job. So that's when I was like, okay, I want to get involved in politics, but I just had to wait until the timing was right. The timing is right now. Senator Scott Searway is termed out, so I figured, you know what, it's something I've always wanted to do. I think I've worked with plenty of diversified people over the years that I'll obviously be a great senator. That's the thing about our district now too is uh, I would argue against almost anybody that we probably have one of the most diversified districts in the state. Saturday, for example, I was at Dallas Market in Albion, having a piece of bacon pizza, talking to people there, and 20 minutes later, I'm on Mayflower Hill.
Right.
So it's quite. I wouldn't say it's drastic, but it's quite different the lifestyle in Albion than the lifestyle up on top of Mayflower Hill.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah, we were talking about that last podcast about how diverse just the Waterville and Oakland area is. I mean, like I was saying on the street I live on here in Waterville, we're got a pretty diverse crowd of who we live around, and we all get along. And that's one thing that is really wonderful about this area that I like. Um, as most of, well, a lot of people don't know this, but I guess I will reveal it since Kevin is our guest today. Originally was born in San Diego. A lot of people don't know that I'm from California, but I moved here when I was 8. So, but yeah, I grew up on Miramar,
nice.
and
The
if I
old Top Gun base.
yes, if I remember right,
Fighter Town.
yeah, we got talking about being out there. My father also was in the Navy, and he worked on Coronado too. So, yeah,
Great area down there.
it is. It is. So I definitely understand what you're saying with how the military is definitely how they pull together.
Yeah.
So, having that, and then when you retire, getting out, that culture shock is
Yeah. And that's one thing too. Is one thing I'll always support are my brothers and sisters that are veterans. Uh, Honestly, getting out of the Navy, naval aviation after 30 years, it's a camaraderie. Obviously, I've known nothing else. I did it my entire adult life, but it was depressing. It was very depressing. I had to man up and seek help and talk to the doctors. It The camaraderie is like no other. It's really good. And the cool thing about that is too, uh, the military, obviously the melting pot of the world, almost literally. We just touched on being diversified. You get so many friends that you work with in the military. I always said people work with me, people don't work for me. Uh, but being able to, and it kind of touches on what you just mentioned, Sean, about everybody gets along. Yeah, in the military, not everybody gets along. It's just like anything else. Not
Mhm.
everybody gets along. but we always had each other's back.
Yeah,
You know?
it's a family. Like
You know?
it is. Like I
Yeah.
mean, you.
And that camaraderie, being a part of a team that wins, is something I miss. So that was another key factor in deciding that I want to run for Senate, because I really want to continue to serve our country, for the most part, even though it's at the state level, and work with people. I love working with people.
Well, that's what it's about. I've noticed a lot of people. It's some people can get involved and they don't. And I guess that's where I'm mainly focusing this towards is you get a lot of people who will put the fight up and talk a good talk, but they don't want to help. So thank you for stepping up.
Oh, thank you.
So that's one big thing with me is just getting out there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's hard.
Yeah. So I do understand that there are some people who can't, and I do understand that, but that's where people do figure out a way to help, and then that's what it's about is finding that camaraderie again, I guess.
Right.
So we were talking last week about your ties in the area. You said let's talk a little bit about your what you did for schooling here, like how you moved around. You said a lot.
Yeah. Actually, I believe it's 10. I bounced around to 10 different schools. My childhood, we had it rough. My parents got divorced when I was 4 years old. We were living on Abbott Street here in Waterville. My parents got divorced. We ended up moving to Winslow on Petty's Pond. We lived in a camp when we first lived there. We didn't have any running water. We didn't have, we used the outhouse, and that lasted, I think, for about 2 years. But anyways, growing up on welfare, my mom always, bless her heart, she always did what she could to make ends meet. Mm-hmm. And if it meant moving to Oakland to save whatever it was back then, $50 a month on rent to give the kids something else, that's what she did, And as a kid, we didn't know much better. But what happened there is when you move around schools that much, I always felt I was behind, I was a straight D student. There's no doubt about it,
Yep.
Well, I guess one area too that we were talking into a little bit about was just about how essentially getting the funding back into the teachers' hands. I know that you said you were, if I remember correctly, you said you were for that. You're definitely for
teachers' pay.
Yeah, you're definitely for helping the teachers out.
Absolutely, and one of the things I say is I'll never forget where I came from. That was a mantra when I made Chief Petty Officer in the Navy, but also now as a candidate for Senate, not to forget where I came from. My grandmother was a teacher. I know teachers right now. In fact, I've talked to quite a few of them. But it was my metal shop teacher. It was a couple of the teachers. It was actually one of my math teachers because I was in like bonehead math, to help me get the minimum credits. But I remember those teachers and how important they were to me when I went to school when I was behind. Yeah, mm-hmm. I remember some of the bad ones, but I remember the good teacher. I bet if we went out and we asked people, who was your favorite teacher when you were a kid, probably most of us could probably say, oh, it was so-and-so, Mrs. Mishude or whoever,
right?
Or the worst teacher. I don't remember the worst teacher.
Yeah, I had really good teachers.
Yeah, I was gonna say what
I went to Lawrence High Schools.
I know Waterville. When I was going through, we had really good teachers.
On the teachers' pay, according to NEA.org, Maine ranks 45th in the country.
Wow.
For starting teachers' pay. $37,000, contrary to what our governor said at $40,000 at the State of the State address. It's actually, according to the research that I have, I could be wrong. If I am, I apologize. The starting teacher salary is $37,700 something dollars. Okay, now you consider that, let's say that a young teacher has child care, $300 a month in child care.
Right.
And now you have to pay $500 a month for the medical insurance for that child. That's not very much. And there's actually there's actually a teacher shortage. I had the opportunity to sit down with a local school attendant a couple weeks ago, and one of the questions I had is, what do you think about the teachers pool to hire? And the answer was, what pool? That's kind of scary if you think about it.
Yeah.
So yeah, the teachers, doing what we can for teachers. I think we can do more. I think my numbers, I don't have the numbers in front of me. I believe we're maybe 18th or somewhere in the teens on money spent per student. But I think we can definitely do better at taking care of our teachers, because it's not like they used to be. Now they've got to be almost social workers. And
Right. I was having this discussion with a friend of mine a while back, and we were talking about the roles that teachers play, and also the roles that they've taken on over the years. And we got into talking about how, how family structures have changed. So essentially, a teacher may be playing that other parent role.
absolutely.
Yep.
So, I'm all for figuring out how to help our teachers out in that area.
And when I say teachers, let me back up for a second. I would say educators.
Right.
The reason why I say educators is my wife is a librarian at George Mitchell School in Waterville. She's an educator. Looking at the salary that she gets, it's for what she does. My personal opinion, she loves her job. She loves the kids. She sees every kid at the school. But if we were not in the situation that we were in because of my pension or whatnot, then I don't see how somebody could live on being on that type of pay. So I think we need to do more as a state to keep our educators not only in their job, but keeping their families taken care
Financially stable.
Yes.
A better financial footing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So, yeah, definitely. I did wanted to get into one thing. We were talking. Yes. Our last show we had. I gotta find it here.
And if anyone has any questions for him, you guys can call into the system. It's 207-250-1010.
No stumping the chump though.
Yeah, yeah. So feel free to call in. We'll have Jeremy will throw that number up on the screen.
As long as Bart Simpson doesn't call in, we'll be okay.
Right. But yeah, no, I wanted to get into, because we were talking about the parking issue here in Waterville last time, and it looks like in 1921, 1 hour parking was first introduced on Main Street.
Really?
Yes. And I also found out another interesting thing. In 1947, parking meters start to appear on city streets here in Waterville.
It's interesting.
Yes.
We were talking about that last week.
So I know I've talked about this before, bringing back the parking
Actually,
meters.
I was talking to Jay.
It would be a way to leverage that income that we were talking about that needs to be harnessed from the outside communities that use us as a service center.
Are you going to ask me a question on parking?
No.
Parking meters?
No. It's just it's been a big topic here in Waterville, and I brought it up last podcast, and I just actually got the dates for everything.
Yeah,
so.
I listened to the mayor's State of Waterville on, what day was that, Saturday that you
Sunday.
had? Sunday?
Yep.
All the days seem to run together now.
They do.
But yeah, I like how he thinks sometimes.
Yeah.
It's
one of the reasons why I had him on, because he's an interesting guy, and when I was partnered with him, we had conversations all the time about different things, political and elsewise, and we would just sit there and debate at the shop all the time.
But
People
that's
thought
good. That's very thoughtful. If you can agree, and that's something I think that we have lost in not only politics but in America as a whole, is we've lost a sense to agree to disagree.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and it's I agree, and it's kind of disgusting to look at how you're now one side or the other, and if you're on the opposing side, you're an enemy.
Yeah, there is no in
between. You're not
between.
even like a citizen anymore, or a resident, or someone that just lives next door. It's
Right.
become so combative.
Yeah.
It's just the wrong way to compartmentalize society, that's for sure. But yeah, let's get back into you are a strong supporter of the Second Amendment.
Oh, absolutely.
Uh,
That's number one on my list right there. I think too many people take that for granted. And it's kind of scary, really, if you think and you just watch it at what some people are gonna, are trying to do with that.
I know that New York, we seem to have a lot of funding that comes out of New York that tries to attack our Second Amendment here in Maine.
Bloomberg.
Yes, I was waiting for somebody else to say the verbatim name.
That's what it is. That's what it was. What was it? Yes on 3. That
It's
campaign.
been a few. There's been a couple over the years.
Yeah, and that's one thing that would probably be the first. I don't like to use the word fight, but I think that's one thing that would probably anger me, and I would definitely swing for the fences on. And because in Maine we have great gun laws, but I think we can get better. Actually.
Well, talking with a lot of the people that I talk to with on the groups that I'm on, one thing that seems to be a common theme is essentially just enforcing the laws we have on the books.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of the mass shootings, I guess, of that would be the correct term, mass shootings. A lot of these people fall through gaps where if they were doing their job and checked the databases, this person would have never been able to purchase a weapon.
And there's also things that we need to do, possibly, where if you try to buy a gun and you know that you would fail the background check, instead of just saying, no, you failed the background check, go out your merry way, people don't ever try to follow up with that person that's trying to buy a gun to find out, you try to buy a gun. Why are you trying to buy a gun? Mm-hmm. Now, I'm not for asking people why they're trying to exercise their Second Amendment rights. But if they already know that they don't have those Second Amendment rights because they're convicted of a felony or something, then they shouldn't be out trying to buy one. But then oftentimes the flip side is that they'll oftentimes go to the black market to buy those, or private party sales.
Yes.
Which private party sales, as an avid Second Amendment fan, I'm not for background checks for private party sales. So
I just say when you do the back party sales is be diligent when you're selling a weapon to someone. Make sure you pay the $5 for the background check. Just to get a little bit of knowledge on the person.
There's arguments that be had on both sides, and again, I think it's one of those things like we just talked about: agree to disagree.
Right.
I agree and disagree with what both of your, pieces of what your views are, but that doesn't make me right, and it doesn't make me wrong either. But it's being able to work with people to get through these issues and listen and see what makes the most sense.
Absolutely.
You talk about mass shootings. I don't want to get into the numbers or anything, but the one thing that irritates me the most is gun-free zones.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right,
we were
those
talking.
never work.
Yeah, we were talking about this last.
But yet we
cast.
have a list of. I think if you go to the Maine State Police website, we have a list of 11. Gun-free zones published.
Oh yeah, we were just saying it. Black. Hate to put it this way, but a neon sign.
Right. It's like basically come in. We're not protected.
Right.
In the Second Amendment, I also kind of tie that into government overreach. I believe that's gotten way out of control.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think some lawmakers don't understand the difference between statutory law and constitutional law in breaking their oath of office. To me, that's something I take serious. You gotta. I would definitely do due diligence to make sure before I sign my name or I saw something that was going to pass, if it was against constitutional law, to at least have that conversation with somebody.
Absolutely.
There's things that get passed that are against the Constitution.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's the thing. We see that a lot happening, and then it works its way through court, and it gets pushed to the Supreme Court, and then it's ruled unconstitutional, and things still get pushed through.
And that's the whole thing. I don't think it takes a politician to go to Augusta and do what's best for our district. Obviously I'm not a politician,
Well, yeah, that's one thing that we were going to get into talking with you about is what was your thought process for going clean elections?
That was easy for me, because I don't have name recognition that my counterparts have.
Okay. And
Now, let me caveat that with if I was running, a friend of mine is running for Congress district in California, Devin Nunes' old spot. And if I was in his shoes, I would almost guarantee that it would be much different, But coming back after 30 years, yeah, I have friends and family in the area, but not enough to. And I'm humble. I have a hard time asking somebody for $5 for my clean election. A lot of people say, "Oh, $5." Well, it's the $175 that I have to get.
Right.
right.
Going to some of these companies where they don't know who I am, they don't know my character, my ethics, but yet I'm going to ask them for money. Now, after I win this election, when I go up the next time, I'm definitely going to run traditional. And there's pros and cons to both. I was briefed on how the other side uses clean elections to their advantage.
Yeah, we were talking about this a little bit, and how they use it to their advantage.
They do. They do use it to their advantage. And it's almost, I wouldn't want to say that it's hypocritical, but as a conservative, to use taxpayers' money for elections, I personally don't like it, but it was the best option for me.
Right.
Yeah. At this point,
I was talking
being a rookie.
Right. I was talking a little bit about this with Shelley Rudnicki, and she made some really good points and definitely turned me towards running traditional instead of clean elections. But I definitely see where you're coming from, and I'm glad that we had this discussion because, like we were saying, it's good to see both sides of thinking.
Yeah.
And this could be the third line of thinking because it could be that another candidate uses it for a different reason.
Yeah.
So it may not be the same reason you're using it for.
It could be that you use it now, but maybe you help when you get into office. You help disband or lower or make things like limit some of the use of it.
Right.
Because right now I read in 2018 there was $3.5 million allocated to clean elections, and that was just in the House races in 1 year.
I have some notes here on that. I'm listening.
Well, yeah, because I'm actually, you had mentioned it was a little over how much was it? Did you say it was?
3.5 million.
3.5, yeah, so that's a pretty big number.
That was allocated. That was before anything was paid back.
But, yeah, so like I was talking with Kevin, and Kevin brought, kind of explained it to me, and I as a conservative, I would only use what I need. And
right.
Then...
Yeah,
but then Kevin...
I'm brought up not to spend money.
Yeah, and then Kevin explained to me about how it can be used, but it's kind of an abusive way of using it, I guess.
I'm very thorough and I'm a very analytical person, and I've read the Clean Elections book countless times, and thankfully, I have a counterpart in Augusta, Erin. She's awesome. She works at the ethics office, and she answers any questions that I have. And some of the questions I have are clear gray areas. In naval aviation, we're taught to exploit the gray areas. If you want to complete a mission, you don't want to go against the book. But if there's a gray area, it's almost like ask for forgiveness type of thing. You're not breaking the law, but it's not stipulating.
Right.
There are a lot of gray areas in the clean election campaigns that I believe that the other side has taken advantage of. And I don't want to get into the details here.
I wasn't.
Because it's not proven fact by me. It's just what I was briefed on.
Right.
That we talked about at one of our caucuses that I was at. But it was interesting. Interesting.
That's
there was a reason why it passed.
Yeah.
Not only passed, but it's also been expanded since then.
Right.
Where you can get supplemental payments.
Yes.
Absolutely. And when I win the primary, if I get 175, I don't know how long you guys want to talk on this, but I can get upwards of $40,000.
Yeah, it's a lot of it's a lot of money,
For-
especially
for-
if you're in a contested primary,
Yes.
Right.
and then once you're in a contested general election.
Right. And like I said, for me as the new guy and not knowing I've met a lot of business owners now. Next time, there's no doubt that in a traditional campaign, I think I could do very well. But
That's good.
That's why.
And that's why I'm saying, like, there may be the third avenue for it.
Mhm.
Like, I didn't look at it from your perspective when I was talking to Shelley, so that's...
It just kind of surprises me the amount of people that I don't really think understand just how much tax money goes into a program like that, because it's not really widely discussed or talked about.
No.
And you think clean elections, it sounds good, but
Well, that's
it
what it is.
doesn't-
It's the optics of it.
Right. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're spending the money cleanly, but all the money is at least accounted for, at least with receipts and things like that. But that doesn't mean, like, I remember a while ago, one of my senators that I had at one point had a opponent that used their clean elections fund on a lobster dinner for people for the residents to come.
Right.
It was like a lobster dinner for them to come and from, I think, someplace in Augusta. And I don't think using taxpayer funds would best be utilized in a situation like that where
I agree with you 1,000%.
lobster dinners are just really
Right.
expensive.
I agree with you.
And just for that matter alone, even I liked the person I voted for, but just that matter alone is another reason why I voted for the person I voted for.
It took me 2 weeks to order business cards because I wanted to save 50 cents.
Whatever is clever.
As a taxpayer, I can appreciate that.
Yes, thank you. So I guess we can move into. So it looks like you're a strong supporter of our police departments. What's one thing that you would like to learn more to better help the law enforcement community?
Well, I have friends in the law enforcement. I have a friend that's in the state police. I have a friend that's a police officer. I think this is kind of the old three-legged stool type of thing here, where we have to have the courage to give our police officers what they need to do their job, the resources, the tools. I call it manning, training, and equipping our law enforcement. We have a big drug problem in central Maine.
Oh, absolutely.
I saw that from the day I moved here, from Central California. How do we get a hold of that? Well, it starts with interdiction. It's coming across the state line.
That's the big spots that need to be focused.
I don't know the answer, and I don't want to.
There's not one answer. That I do know.
But I don't want to insult those that are doing the job now. They are doing the damn best they can with what they have.
It's limited resources all the way around.
We need to do better.
Absolutely.
If the colonel of the state police or the major or the lieutenant or whatever the case may be says, I need X amount of money, yeah, I'm going to ask. If I was on that committee, I would ask, what are we spending? And, it should be, we should do it smartly, but that should be one of the things, because that right there, if we have good interdiction, it's kind of the stepping stone to everything else, which leads into the Democrats or those on. I try not to use the term Democrat. I have a lot of great friends that are Democrats, so there are people on the other side that'll bang the table for treatment. I was a drug and alcohol program advisor when I was in the Navy, and you don't go right to the end step. What about intervention? What about prevention? Yes, I understand there's some treatment and there are some issues out there. In fact, my first podcast that we're going to be doing, I'm going to be having some guests, and we're going to be talking about some of this stuff. But going back to the law enforcement, and I think there needs to be collaboration there as well. And what I mean by collaboration is working with the communities. The town of Fairfield, in my opinion, does a great job. They do trunk or treat with the kids. They do all kinds of things like that. I would like to see that across the board. I'm not saying they don't, but I think we could do better with getting our law enforcement working with our communities a little more.
Well, that's what it's about. It's about getting the prevention part of like the way that I look at it is we got to protect the younger kids now.
Absolutely.
See, we protect them with the prevention, and then we do the treatment for because I'm in recovery myself. 6 years, so you have your treatment and then your post treatment. But you have your certain stages.
Right.
And I do agree with you that there needs to be the certain stages for certain aspects of where it's gone in the community. So, like, you have your older community members that may have been, like, because mine was prescription drugs from a doctor. That's how mine started. But it progresses and turns into what it turns into. But I guess what I'm getting at is like someone like me, there needs to be those treatment programs available for people.
I agree. 100%.
But they're definitely, I do understand what you mean by there needs to be prevention, and I think that's where it comes in with the younger kids. I guess what I was
saying, Sean, is I would like to see the numbers in our treatment centers much lower.
Oh, absolutely, and that's where, and that's where I believe the prevention, starting with the education with the younger.
That's at all ages too,
right?
Because
education all the way around the board is the way to go.
It could be my dad, who's 75 years old, that could get addicted to pain pills, or it could be a 13-year-old boy or young girl that just came home from the softball field or whatever the kid. We don't know.
Right. Right.
I think we can do. That's one of the things I feel strongly about is giving them the tools, resources, manning them, training them, equipping them with what they need to succeed.
So with that, what do you think of Waterville Police Department's Operation Hope? Have you looked much into that yet?
No.
Okay.
That would definitely be something.
I would check with Chief Massey on that. It's a really good program. They've helped a lot of people so far. I think it's like it's like 6th or 7th year in.
Did Rick Foss? He did the ride around. He may know a little bit more about it.
Yeah, it's a really good program, and they're out there helping people that have addiction issues.
I may have heard it, but the acronym.
Project Hope.
It's Operation Hope.
Operation Hope. I'm sorry.
I thought you said help.
No, Operation Hope.
Hope. Yes, I've heard of hope. I thought you said help. I was
no.
Damn.
No, Operation Hope.
Hope. No, but I'll definitely. I would like to reach out and talk to Chief anyway about some other things, and see what we can do, because I'm sure he has some good insight as well.
Yeah, one thing I'd like to see is more local treatment options, because not everyone can go out of state. Like, if you have kids, and I do understand that when you do go into recovery, you have to be selfish. I mean, there's no way around it. If you're not selfish about your recovery, you're not going to get clean. But I do understand that. But what I guess what I'm getting at is if you have a family, I mean, how do you take care of your family and go to treatment?
Yeah,
you see what I'm saying?
I think we could talk about this for
all
a
night
couple
long.
of hours.
Right.
I attended. It was a month or two ago. I attended the governor's opioid intervention seminar, and it was eye opening. It was pretty eye opening. I got a lot of materials from it, and it was very eye opening to at least listen smartly to the things that you're talking about.
Right.
Which again,
And one huge part with recovery on whatever it is, for substance abuse, alcohol abuse, whatever you may be addicted to, it's that stigma that comes with it.
Yeah.
That is what almost, I would say, is almost 50% of what pushes an addict back into using, is that stigma.
Yeah, I have family involved in that circle right now. So it's near and dear to my heart.
Yes, and we'll get into more of this topic later.
Stay tuned on the next podcast for Kevin Kitchen.
Stay tuned. But let's move back into I know one big thing right now is states are starting to lift the mask mandates.
Thankfully.
Yes.
How do you feel about that?
I think it's a shame. Like I said, my wife is a librarian at the local school here. I listen to her when she comes home at night. I think it's tough for the kids. For me, I wear hearing aids. I'm hearing impaired, thanks to working on the flight deck for years. But I couldn't imagine, a young kid, for example. I will say it should be parents' choice, first and foremost. But I think it impairs learning.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. I was
definitely.
talking with a speech therapist, a friend of mine, and I never knew how much young children that are learning to speak actually pick up on those facial cues. Like
Reading
just
lips.
the the small, like, the crease in your forehead. Like the best way he explained it to me is when you're walking like in a store, like say somebody you're gonna walk by somebody. Just by looking at each other which way you're going to go, just by your eye movements. So if you look right, I know you're going right and I'm going to go left. And you can do this without speaking with one
Right,
another. But it's
subconsciously.
you're picking this up subconsciously. And I never knew how much children actually pick up on this. And he was definitely upset about how essentially the science hasn't been utilized. It's more political than actual.
I don't know how to say. I always speak my mind, but the thing that bothers me is the state has no mandates on this. It's the school boards that are doing the mandate.
Right.
And I'm totally about, and I could get into the education piece, but it definitely. I'm a believer in parents' choice.
One thing that I know some schools they were slated to receive funds.
Yeah, I think all
federal
the local
funds.
schools all received funds.
So essentially, they weren't going to get this money unless they played ball.
Right, unless they followed the recommendations
Yeah.
from the Maine Department of Education and
So-
the CDC.
It's tough.
So
It's
I
tough.
guess, like people are. Well, I guess we can reach outside of. But people are saying, "Where's that funding going?" That's where a lot of people want to know now.
I think
Why it's important to go to your school board meetings.
Oh, absolutely.
like I said, I talked with the superintendent. That's a job that is, I think that is a thankless job at times. What they
I would
do,
imagine.
Definitely.
and I listened to the mayor talk about. You had asked the mayor about the assistant superintendent. I think that's a no-brainer. What they do, what the superintendents do, because ultimately it's the school board, and that's a whole other conversation itself. The whole education piece. So
Right.
Yeah,
I disagree with the masks.
Yeah, so I'm from Oakland, and our superintendent has done a really good job at keeping things open. Like, we're one of the only schools in the area that literally, since the pandemic happened, other than the first couple months of it when everyone was home, when it started the next school year, we were open 5 days a week.
Right.
We had masks, and we still do, but now it's to the point where it's the masks are there. But if you're like a first contact or direct contact with people that have COVID, it's so minimized, so that way kids aren't missing school. So RSU 18 has done an amazing job at keeping kids
and that's
in
good.
school.
And that's the thing. The public doesn't hear a lot of the.
That was the biggest
good jobs.
frustration as a parent I had is just, getting that phone call that your kid was exposed and then having to keep them home for the quarantine or.
Because I've gotten that call a couple different times,
Yeah,
but
same here.
because of the masking and the recommendations that they're following from the state, nothing had to be done because they're following the guidelines. And I don't know if it's like per school board, but because it's RSU 18,
I
my
honestly
kid
think
got to go to school the next day.
I honestly think like I was saying, it boils down to what funds were received when they drew this all up, I guess.
Well, and I think the fact that they receive funds is indicative of the fact that they have to follow the guidelines. Like, you don't receive funds if you don't follow the guidelines. Yeah. But then the school board, depending on, I guess, how your school board breaks down, with how liberal it is or how conservative and things like that, they can obviously enact their own recommendations or requirements for the schools as well, above
Right.
and beyond any kind of recommendations that they have to follow to get the funding. And I think that's probably the difference is RSU 18 didn't do more, from my gathering of it, didn't do more than it had to, which is why my kid, was still able to go to school
Right.
even when she was around a kid at
We did
in her
the-
class that was
We did the
COVID
remote
positive.
learning, and it was rough.
So we're talking about education. Can I ask you guys a question?
Absolutely.
What do you think about the governor's free college tuition for 2 years, or community college?
I think it's just going to raise the prices. Of
Nobody helped me
community
pay
college.
my tuition back, so
Anything that's incentivized by government payment is just going to go up in cost because it's
absolutely.
promised to be paid.
It'll eventually probably affect the quality of education.
So
Imagine.
I asked this because I picked up on this. I left my notebook at home for the state of the state. One thing that bothers me with that is it's community college. Now, obviously, I'm not in Augusta yet, and I haven't seen what's coming. I'm a firm believer in trade schools, VOTEX,
I'm
and
more
technical schools. Like I said,
I lean more towards technical colleges myself.
metal shop saved me, and drafting as well at Lawrence High School. Now, I think there's a stigma out there that we have to get away from, that college is the best way to go. Community college, I'm all about community college,
Well, I went to Job Corps, so I essentially got my high school diploma through trade. So,
what's our return on investment? Okay, are we allowing our children to continue to live? I'm just gonna
Spitball.
I'm just gonna say it. Are we gonna allow our children to live in our parents' basement for 2 more years, go to community college, get their associate's degree, and then move on to University of New Hampshire 2 years later? What's in it for us as a state? What's the return on investment? If there is a return on investment, there's accountability, that's fine.
that's why I like those incentive programs that incentivize keeping college students here
Yeah.
so long.
What if they
or
don't
getting work here?
What if they don't pass the class? They pay it back?
Good question.
What if they graduate with honors? Do we require them to, similar to the other bill that was just passed, stay a working citizen, be a
In
productive
Maine
member of
for
society for X amount of time?
Right.
I would like to see what the return on investment is. Nothing's free. Nothing is free.
No.
It's only free to the person receiving it. Free is not free.
Right.
Contrary to the commercial, free for free.
So
It's coming from somewhere.
my background is in IT. I don't have any college degrees, and I'm more for. I love community college. I went to KVCC for a little bit. Almost got my certificate, but I dropped out when my mom passed away. So I'm all for community colleges. KVCC is probably one of the most affordable,
Right.
probably in the whole state. I think they do a really good job. I would love to see more partnerships between the private sector and public sector in regards to more like HVAC, like STEM type of work.
Yes.
Yeah.
Where people like Hools or heating
job-based
places,
training.
Well-
things like that will pay someone to stay here and put them through trade school of
Didn't-
some sort.
Didn't KVCC, I was talking to Senator Searway about this, they used to have an apprenticeship program I'd like to see brought back. Kind of the similar thing.
Because they have an awesome lineman program at KVCC too, don't they? That's still there, I believe.
I believe so.
But similar to that, almost exactly what you're saying, yes, community college, but let's say you go to a trade school. Could you imagine if you own, a guy I work with, his son owns Nitro Trailers in Pittsfield. So let's say I know Mark really close, Mark Dow, and you go to welding school. Okay, what's the return on investment? You finish, if the owner of whatever trailer comes in and says, you finish in the top 10%, I will guarantee you a job. That's return on our investment in the state. Now you're helping our local businesses. Now
Right.
you're staying in the state. Now you're contributing. That's huge. But
Yep.
just to hear community college, that should be, I would expect that to be opened up. I would expect them to discuss all options of what they could use and what we're getting back for investment. Because then it's not necessarily free. We could actually end up making money as a state off of a program like that if we do it right.
Right.
Efficiency of the program.
Unfortunately, it's coming from the government, and efficiency is not one of their
The name of the
favorite
game,
things
yeah.
to do.
That's
a new process, new.
accountability. That's another thing I'm huge on is
That's a naughty word.
accountability and audited. I sat on my son's school board in California. My wife was a librarian in the school in California. She got audited all the time, line item by line item. How much did you spend on whatever the case may be?
Wow.
Yeah, very, very tough audits.
People don't want to hear this, but it's a lot of times what the unions want. So if the unions of the teachers' unions,
Yeah.
I love teachers. I used to be a PTA president for multiple years. I'm very active I have 3 kids, very active in their schooling, love the school. And I love the teachers. I don't like unions because there should never be a public union because then they're not accountable. They're paid by the taxpayer. The teachers should be accountable to the taxpayer because that's who pays them technically. So I'm not a big fan of unions because the unions are looking out for the teacher, as that's what unions are.
Are you talking just teacher unions or unions as a whole?
Public unions as a whole.
Okay.
I don't like any public unions. Technically I don't like any unions, but if it's in an industry, it's none of my business.
That's where we can agree to disagree.
You like what part?
As far as the unions?
Well, yeah, like what part agree to disagree? Do you like unions in general?
There's pros and cons. There's pros and cons to the unions. When I was in the Navy, I was in a squadron. We had 117 jet fighters, and I had about 900 people in my department I was responsible for. We were short on manpower. We had to. I helped draft and submit and manage a $42 million budget for union contract workers. There were days I wanted to choke the union workers, and there were days I were glad they were union workers. So there's pros and cons to both.
Sure.
I have a friend of mine that works at the Sappy Mill. Everything that's going on over there, and I support him. And you only hear one side of the story. I understand that. There's always 2 sides to every story. But in this case, one of my things I'm running on is to support our mill workers. Without our mills, our area is going to dry up.
We've taken a huge hit
and the
over
mill
the years.
would be underneath a private.
Yes.
And I don't, like I said, I
That's
don't
why
like
I said
unions, but I that's none of my business because
Right.
I'm not part of their industry.
Gotcha.
So where I'm a libertarian, I'm not going to start thinking that I know better than this industry on how to regulate or run it. So if Joe Schmo has some sort of union that they adhere to or that they're pushing, I'm not in that union or part of that job. It's not my business to step in or try to either remove it or stop it or whatever.
I got you. Yeah, and that's where I was saying we can agree to disagree because you said unions as a whole.
Right.
And that's why I was like, okay. So
Right, and it's not the union workers. It's more or less like the idea that they're always they're obviously looking out for their union members, which that's their job.
Right.
But because of it, there's got to be some more give or take, I guess.
Yeah.
But
I think with good auditing, we can become more efficient. I believe that. We didn't spend all our $42 million on contract union work because I was audited. We had to be efficient.
right, and I would be more apt to having auditing,
Yeah.
especially in the public sector.
Yeah. I think it's a good thing. Accountability,
Accountability is important.
not just lip service. Let's do something about it. Because at the very beginning, or maybe before we came on, we were talking about lowering taxes. I don't know the best way to lower taxes, but I do know if we are more efficient with certain programs, we spend less, that's lowering taxes.
Right.
If a organization or a program asks for $10 million because they would be happy with $7 if it got cut and they get $10 million, that's not right.
Right.
That's inefficient.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, there's got to be that accountability, which in turn goes back to lowering taxes.
And I don't know the best way to lower taxes other than obviously, reduce spending, increase revenue somehow. However, obviously not increase revenue by increasing taxes, but increase revenue by adding more benefits.
Right.
That would increase revenue. So that could
More cash influx.
right.
revenue.
Like that's one of the things that I know. Jay, the mayor, that's the one thing that I have to applaud him for. Is he's one of
Has
them
been
that
proactive, yes.
he's one of them that was pushing the ambulance.
Mm-hmm.
Before it got in, he was pushing the ambulances to try to use that as a way to increase revenue coming into the city.
Right.
One spot that I agreed with him on was our IT program, when we were helping other police stations and whatnot with the technical aspect of that world. He made it so that we were getting a competitive rate instead of like the discounted rate, you know what I mean? So
Well, because that's his background.
yeah, so that's I definitely was as a taxpayer here in Waterville, I like that.
And I think those are the things that kind of drive me a little bit. Is in the service, I changed jobs every 3 years. Every 3 years, I had new orders to go and do something different, and you had to learn a new job, and you had to be good at it. How'd you do that? You had to network, and you had to understand. You had to work with people that knew what the hell they were talking about. I'm not an economist. I'm not a politician, but I'm smart enough to look at data and realize that something's fishy here, and let's talk about it and figure out how to get it best. You know, the outsider looking in type
Right.
of thing, or learning a new job. You know, as we said in the military, you know, if I ever heard the term, that's how we always did it, that raised the red flag. How about show me,
Right.
explain to me. Okay, what is this? I'm not just going to sign off on this. My signature means the world to me. So not being an economist, I would definitely try to get smart on it, but ask the tough questions. Silence is compliance. You know, if I don't say anything about it, then I'm compliant. So.
Yeah, exactly. Accountability, like you said.
All right, looks like we're going to touch on one more topic tonight. It's a big deal that's going on in the local area, and it's has to do with families and farmers, and that's the PFAB contamination.
PFAS? Yes.
PFAS. I always mispronounce it.
That's all right.
But Fairfield seems to be a real big spot for that.
It is a hot spot, and it's getting worse. I was watching the news tonight, and there was a farm. I think it was Dixfield. But there were over 700 sites in the state right now that have had this forever chemical sludge or whatever dumped on them. My wife and I bought the house we live in on 40 acres so I could hunt and not fish, there's a brook down there, but, hunt on my own land or do whatever the case may be. I can't do that anymore. I can't eat the deer in our area.
I was going to say, yeah, I remember reading about that in the Morning Sentinel.
The state has changed their limits for these chemicals to 20 parts per trillion. My well water is at over combined almost 29,000.
Wow.
1,000 times higher than the safe limits.
Wow.
They've changed the filters in my house. And I will say DEP they have been great. They do whatever. If I ever have a phone question, I call Molly up there. They answer it. But the problem is there's no solution in sight.
That's what I was just gonna get
And
into. Is it doesn't really seem like there's much that can be done.
And it's one of those. What there really isn't at this time. There really isn't at this time, but I say I'm glad you brought up the farmers in that too, because it wasn't the farmers' fault. There are people out there saying, "Oh, it's the farmers' fault." It's not the farmers' fault. They were authorized.
Yeah, they were looking for.
They're taking huge hits.
Well, not just they were taking the cheapest form of what they could at the time to use to fertilize
for whatever reason. Yeah.
Right.
For whatever reason.
And they said it was safe at the time. So I mean, it's not like they maliciously went out of their way to say, hey, I'm gonna.
There are. I agree with you, and I think unfortunately there are people out there that have that mindset that it's the farmer's fault, and it's not.
So this was all done by the sludge, right? On the fields?
The way I understood it is it was something to do with something that was it a chemical that was used in treatment of sewage? Is that what it was?
Yes, and yes. Yes, and yes. So, and it depends on the area. Arundel down there, it started down there years ago. And it depends on the area. So if we look at our area, the sludge came from the treatment plant.
Right.
Where did the treatment plant, where did these chemicals come from? And that's where all the finger pointing starts.
Yep.
Did it come from the mill, through the wastewater? Did it come from the sludge ponds at the other mill up the road and was spread as ash or whatever the case may be? The state we have that data. That data is public. But to me, it's almost irrelevant of how it got here. Right. It's what are we going to do about it? Exactly. What are we going to do about it? There's families that are hurting. The road that I live on in Fairfield, it's bad up there. It's probably the worst hit. I shouldn't say that. If you're hit by it, you're hit by it. It doesn't matter if you're at 21 or 29,000.
Right.
It's contaminated. But what I would like to see is the state.
Some R&D go into it, maybe.
To what's that?
Some R&D, some research, development, maybe trying to figure out
something.
And
it's out there, and
because
even
I have seen. I don't mean to cut you off, but I have seen. This probably may not have anything to do with it, but there is a. I'll have to look it up, but it's essentially it's alive, whatever it is, but it eats it changes. It eats like the pond scum. But it's natural.
Like algae type stuff, or
like
Rid-X?
I don't know. But so essentially, you put this stuff. It cleans water, is what it does.
Okay.
So I guess what I'm trying to say is maybe they might be able to find something that can be spread out that'll eat down. Same idea, like maybe in the water. But yeah, it would definitely take some research. And
I think. I believe, because I talk to a lot of people about this, a lot of people are concerned about their investment at their home. Obviously, the health issues are big, and I know you guys need to wrap it up here. The health issues are big. The investment is big as well. Is my real estate, is the price of my home going to drop? Am I going to be able to sell it? Who wants to buy land, water that's contaminated? As a state, LD 1911 is on the table right now that talks about it. That's an interesting read.
Is there any FEMA money?
Well, and that's exactly where I was just about to go. At the state level, we definitely need to reach and get some federal resources. People have filed for tax abatements and stuff like that. If I didn't pay I pay a lot of money in taxes, a lot of taxes in Fairfield. If we didn't pay our taxes, the town would dry up. So what are we doing? We need to look at all avenues to help the people, to help the town. Fairfield's spending talking about running water to everybody,
right,
all the way up. So,
wow,
it's going to be expensive. The money is coming from somewhere, but we need to support. We need to make sure our families and farmers are supported. And
absolutely,
they have a voice that can speak for them in Augusta, because I'm right plump in the middle of it.
No one better.
Yeah,
no one better for the job.
It's a tough situation.
Yeah, there's nothing good that comes from that.
Oh. But so I guess we're going to start wrapping things up. One other topic I wanted to get into is I am going to try to get Marc-Andre and Mike.
I've reached out to Mike Perkins. I just have to tell him a time.
Okay, cool. So, I think that would be a pretty fair thing if we bring them all three on.
I actually want to get LaFontaine as well. He's the one that's running. I think, did I pronounce his name right? He's the one running in for the Democrat.
Okay, yeah, that would be definitely. I think that would make a nice, well-rounded discussion to have with everyone.
Yeah.
Essentially, like I said, we just want to essentially get everyone's name out and essentially try to connect with the voters,
Mhm.
because one thing I've noticed is the people running for either the House or the Senate, I don't really know much about them a lot of the times. And that's where me and Jeremy reach out to us if you are interested in coming on the show. If you're a politician running, we would love to have you on. We're more of a speaker's corner. Now, I think that's about everything that I wanted to get into.
So where can people find you on Facebook if they have more
Yes.
questions about what they
So-
want to know about you?
So right now, Facebook is the quick link is Kitchen Senate, or you type that in, and that will come up. Our webpage, we're pretty close on getting the webpage up. I've been holding up my media/IT guys, giving them some key information, so that's on me. But that's going to be a very simple website. Hopefully, I expect that to be up this week. We were hoping today, but that's going to be kevinkitchen.com. Very simple, kevinkitchen.com. That way I don't have to change it when I win. I can keep running it.
That's right. Or if you ever want to run for the House or any other spots.
Right. I have it. And then that's it. If somebody wants to talk to me, they can give me a call, 314-7532. I'll obviously, if I don't answer the phone, leave a message. And I'd like to talk to people, whatever the concerns are. So website, kevinkitchen.com, Facebook, Kitchen Senate, or give me a ring.
Awesome.
Definitely. And one other thing that we haven't plugged is a shared studio, which is bringing this to you all, making it possible.
Yes. So if anyone has any podcasts or photography they need done, you can rent a space out and just get a hold of me. It's at asharedstudio.com.
And you can also catch me on my other Facebook pages, which is the original Ross Perot. Check us out over there. Also, thank you for checking in with All Sides of Kennebec. We will let you know who our next guest will be. And we are going to shoot for Tuesday at 8 o'clock next week, too?
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to keep the same time. So definitely, I'm Sean Caron.
I'm Jeremy Leza.
And thank you for coming on, Kevin. And until next time, remember, a true patriot questions everything.
Have a good night.